Now, in this course is basically a combination of a lot of anonymous things to learn, right? So in this course, we'll be looking at some little tips of, things that we could use to make our, like the process of our analysis even faster. So assuming we have this data set now, so we basically have this data set and the name of this data set is maybe 311 service request. And then maybe we have to write a query. Maybe we come and we say, so basically I'm trying to query the same table. So I just come here and now say, okay, so I want to have like maybe complaint, description, right? And I want to also maybe, maybe get like the creator date, for instance, right? And then I would like to get the last updated date. So here it is. I have like a data set that is like, I have a data set that is maybe, like this, where basically I'm selecting the complaint description, created date, and the last update date. And I'm selecting everything from this table called the service request table. Now, what happens is this is we could basically at times get to this point where we're kind of playing with this type of data set and we are not really sure like what we want to do. Maybe we're trying to still figure out, different things, and maybe we have written so many queries and we do not want to lose any one of them. So I do not want to delete this query, but I want to write another query, right? And so maybe I can write this new query down here. And maybe this new query is supposed to look for some other thing, right? Maybe I'm not yet made up my mind. Like I'm just trying to test what I'm doing, right? And so I just come and write the street name, for instance, here. And then I write the complaint description here. And then I have like the last update date. Maybe this is what I'm trying to change my mind to. So what happens here is like, because I have two different data sets, I cannot run the two together because then you see this is already showing me like the second part doesn't make sense, right? So basically it already has a red arrow. So I might decide to blank off like the former part of a data set. So this is like, this course basically shows you how to do some of this type of little tricks. So maybe if I were to put two dashes on every row that I put two dashes on, then I automatically wipe that place out. So this query is not going to run. So it's me like I have deactivated the query, so to say. So when I run this query now, what I do get is just the lower part, right? So you have like three columns. Now in similar fashion, if I also come to the back of complaint description and then I put these two dashes, what it does is it deletes the third column, knowing fully that I could just come back and release it. Maybe I do not want to delete it yet, but I just want to deactivate it. So when I do this, it basically deletes the impact of the last row column. And then when you run the query, what you know is the data set goes from 3 and then it comes to 2. Because the last part of the data set has been deleted anyways. So this is the case, right? So this is a little trick that, people do maybe when they're still, because then when you develop your code, maybe you develop it in parts. And when you develop in parts, you, maybe at times you want to keep some part of the query and you want to run some other parts of the query. Now, another very good way of deactivating a query, especially if there is a very long chunk of it. So maybe for instance, we have another, third query that we have written here. And this time around, here is called the city instead of the street name. Now, and then, and then I discovered like, okay, so we would like to run, we have 3 queries and then we would like to run just the last one, right? So we do not want to run the first 2 queries. So Another very good way of deselecting a query and deactivating the query is basically to put this query in some kind of envelope. Now, what do I mean by an envelope? Now, this is not a standard term, don't get me confused, but the whole idea is to put it in between a slash and an asterisk. So what do? You put a slash and then you put an asterisk, right? So when you put the star and asterisk, you notice like it seems to have deactivated all the queries. But no, this is not deactivated yet because it's still giving us an errors anyway. So then you have to replicate what you have done in the beginning at the end as well of the area where you would like to delete, right? So basically here, you could just put like a star and then a slash. So in this case, what has happened is basically it has kind of commented out from the beginning of the query till this point, and then just basically allows only this point to run. And then when you run the query, you get exactly this. So this is like, another way to maybe like comment out your queries. Now, another very good tip that you could put into use also is the way you arrange your queries. It's very important to arrange your queries in a way that it makes it easy for somebody else to read, right? So because then at the moment we seem to be writing very simple queries, and because of that, we don't get like 100, or maybe 200 lines of code. I've seen like 500 to 1000 lines of code, especially in BigQuery. But because we are still in the beginners level, we do not like get to this point. And so basically we could just look at like some cases where, some little tips you could put into consideration when you write a query. So for instance, when you write a query, you can just like make sure you indent your query. So for instance, if you are selecting a couple of fields, you have the unique key. So you could say unique key. So maybe, okay, you want to select city and then you want to select unique key. So you could just do it like this, right? Like we have all done throughout this course, but this is only done because, we're just still learning the course anyways. So we could just, you could have like complaints, some complaint description, right? Some owning department, and maybe some source. And then you pull it from the 311 service request dataset, right? So here from this dataset, but we still, for the BigQuery, we still have to put it in a kind of arrangement. So we put it in columns and we put the BigQuery there. So then it's just BigQuery. So here now we see like we have our query, and maybe we even have to select more columns. So we put status, and then we put like, maybe created date as well. So when you look at this query, it's becoming so long, and it's becoming so long that if we keep adding new columns to this query, then it becomes really, really messy, and it's very difficult for anybody to understand. So what one of the best practices is to have each selection on a different line. So basically you put an equal to, so you select, and then you put an equal to. Then also you basically indent. So you have all the queries starting from like a point. So how do you indent? You put the tab key, and then you just put some kind of indentation to it. Just this thing is not going to prevent the data, or it's going to affect the performance of the query, but it's just going to, affect the readability of the query. So then it's easier for a third party to read the query, for instance. So when you, put this, you just put like an equal to, and then you notice like it's already becoming readable, right? So the person who's reading this query now understands what we're trying to do with one glance and not necessarily trying to like overwork himself, right? So this is the idea. So you have like a new feature on a line, and then you basically also add for every little addition you do, make sure you also put it in a line. So for instance, you were to put a where statement, you had to put like a limit statement. You do not put it on the same line, just make sure you take it to another line, and then it's already looking really, really beautiful and really easy for someone else to understand the query. Now, this is all we are going to do in this part of the class. It's just about the tips. It's nothing more. So, yes, we'll see you in the next class. Thank you.